Politics can be tough, in particular when we're talking about controversial issues such as the Israeli-Palestine conflict that is unfortunately still ongoing. Now, whether you're on one side or the other, the important thing is if you want to be in a place where you can find some peace of mind, if you want to be in a place where maybe politics does not invade every single conversation every single day, in a country where you can be a little bit left alone and you can keep your opinions more to yourself, especially with regards to this particular conflict, then stay tuned because this video is for you. Hi there, my name is Javier and I'm a Research and Development Associate here at Nomad Capitalist, and today I'm making a bit of a difficult video for me because I'm going to be slightly touching upon the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Now, I do want to point out, as I do on some of my other videos, that Nomad Capitalist R&D is not a political channel. I will not be taking a stance, whether pro-Palestine or pro-Israel. I believe that is up to each individual viewer to determine. I believe everyone has their own political opinion, and you have a right to believe whatever you want to believe. But what I do want to address is the fact that political tension between Israel and Palestine in the ongoing military conflict has basically revived some violence to an extent. It has revived some discomfort in many people around, especially the Western world. I was talking to one of our colleagues, for example, and he said, well, yes, I mean, if you take a certain political position in Paris or London, you're immediately going to get some allies potentially, but also a lot of enemies, and that makes certain people uncomfortable. And I was talking to some of our clients who are maybe Arab or maybe are Jewish, and they say, listen, I don't feel as safe as I once felt in my country, or at least as I felt prior to the current conflict. And I would also like to take just 5 seconds to give obviously a condolence and shout out for everything that is happening in the region. We do believe that the conflict will be resolved soon, and we hope that it will be resolved in the most peaceful manner possible. Now, if you are in basically that situation where you maybe, whether on one side or the other, feel a bit more unsafe, feel a bit more restricted in things that you want to say or can say, then there are a series of countries that not only offer some interesting tax benefits, but might also be a more neutral setting where maybe the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has not penetrated society to the same extent, right? So if you're in New York, London, Paris, Miami, you might see this on the news all day, and you might, hear discussions about this conflict in your local coffee shop, in your university, in your office. But you know where they're not talking about that every day? Places like Uruguay, places like Costa Rica, places like the Dominican Republic, places where you can have your own opinions, and maybe you can share those opinions in forums, or maybe you can share those opinions with your friends or family or people who legitimately maybe enjoy politics, and you can share that, let's say, in a quote-unquote safe space. But out on the street, nobody's going to signal you out for being on one side or the other. So, for example, in the case of Uruguay, Doug Casey, the original international man, he spends time there. Montevideo is a very European-like city in the southern part of Latin America or South America. Many of our clients view it as the ultimate plan B for World War III, which I guess is very applicable to this video. It's a slower paced country, high quality of life. You get an 11-year tax holiday when you move to Uruguay. So all of your foreign source income is essentially tax-free after those 11 years, which is a pretty good deal. You get a semi-territorial tax system where most of your foreign income is not taxed anyway. Only some of it is. So from the standpoint of tax friendliness, it's there. And also you can live a pretty peaceful life where people are not really paying that much attention to global international conflicts. Uruguay is a pretty neutral country. They have taken a couple of stances, with regards to certain political situations in the region. Like, for example, you may have heard me mention that in the case of the Venezuelan election, Uruguay did have like a very clear stance on who they believed acted wrongly and who they believe acted rightfully. But overall, when it comes to other conflicts that are maybe beyond the scope of the region, Uruguay is pretty neutral. So tax-friendly, politically neutral, and resource-rich. So if you want to maybe buy a farm and maybe, you know, be a bit self-sustainable and have like your own little thing, you know, Uruguay might be a great place to be. You're also close to Argentina, which is an interesting place from a business perspective that you can go to. Some interesting changes happening there from the economic perspectives. So interesting to go to Uruguay. Second country I mentioned was Costa Rica. So Costa Rica is even known for its neutrality because it dissolved its armed forces. It does not have an active duty military. So Costa Rica, similar to Panama, is one of the most developed countries in the region. Now, unlike Panama, Costa Rica tends to be more neutral when it comes to global affairs. Panama is still very neutral to a large extent. However, when I've been on the streets of Panama City, I will say that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is more present just because there is a large Jewish community. There is also a large Arab community. So obviously that can lead to some very heated debates. In the case of Costa Rica, the overall perception is, you know, you're more in your own thing, you're more in nature, you're more in, you know, you're more on the beach, in the mountain, you're not really debating that much. And very few of our clients go to San Jose. Most of them go more to like the pura vida lifestyle, more on the more rural areas of Costa Rica. So if you just want to disconnect and just, you know, be isolated a bit from this conflict, then Costa Rica might be a very, very interesting option for you to consider. In addition to that, Costa Rica has a territorial tax system. So again, very tax friendly. Costa Rica will not tax your foreign source income. It'll only tax your locally sourced income. And both Uruguay and Costa Rica have very nice immigration programs where you could even go as a digital nomad and get a residence permit or a visa for a short while. You can dip your toe in the water, you know, see if you feel comfortable with that country and then potentially go back to your native homeland, or potentially then upgrade that to another kind of residence permit and so forth. The last country I mentioned on this list is the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic is also globally quite neutral. Again, you may have heard me mention that in very regional debates like the Venezuelan election, they did take a very clear stand, but you know, when it comes to global conflicts, you don't really hear the Dominican Republic sanctioning people or going after like foreign dignitaries or whatnot. Again, it can be very friendly from a tax perspective. It has a semi-territorial tax system. When you become a tax resident of the DR, the first 3 years you get a full territorial tax system. So you go from very friendly to quite friendly, but it's still very good from a tax perspective. You have great weather. You've got, you know, good like American style quality of life for those of you who enjoy that. And again, it is a place where honestly, Israel-Palestine, the conflict, it's not really present in everyone's mind. You will always find people, like if you want to debate, if you want to share opinions, there are always people in academic circles and political circles who are very much aware of what's happening in the world, but it's not your day-to-day. Like, I don't think you're gonna run into somebody at your local coffee shop who will want to debate the Israel-Palestinian ongoing armed conflict. So there you have it. I think those are 3 interesting countries you can go to that are tax-friendly and that would allow you to maybe insulate yourself, isolate yourself from this conflict, which we acknowledge has caused so much suffering on both sides, and that obviously can make certain people feel uncomfortable, whether on one side or the other, in certain places around the world. And you know, this is why companies like Nomad Capitalist exist, and this is why we service so many of our clients, because things like, you know, wars, pandemics, just black swan events can happen at any moment. You know, right now in this video, we were talking about the Israeli-Palestinian armed conflict that is still ongoing, but think about the fact that Ukraine is also currently in an armed conflict with the Russian Federation. Again, not taking sides. Everyone has their own opinion, but it is an ongoing military conflict. And guess what? The Ukrainians who had second passports, who had offshore bank accounts, who had offshore business structures, have an easier time moving their families, moving their assets to other locations where maybe they're not as affected by the armed conflict. Same thing with maybe potentially some Russians who wanted to exit Russia because of the country's geopolitical stance. Again, not judging. You may be for, you may be against. That's up to you. But if you want to have options, it is always important to have a plan B in place from an immigration perspective, from an asset protection perspective, from a banking perspective, and from a business perspective. Ultimately, you can have all the opinions you want, but the important thing is that you're able to execute on those opinions, that you're able to actually be in a place where you're treated best and where your money and your freedom of speech and your opinions are able to come to fruition, whether you are on one side of the conflict or the other, whether you believe something is right or something is wrong, that is completely up to you. But the fact that you're able to choose and say, okay, well, right now I feel good being in Russia or being in Israel or being in Palestine or being in Ukraine or whatever it is that you feel passionate about, the important thing is you have the freedom to choose where you want to be depending on what stances you have. That comes with having plan Bs, multiple structures, and a company like Nomad Capitalist can definitely help you set that up and provide you with the freedom, the individual freedom to support the causes that are dear to you and support the initiatives that are aligned with your personal values. We've always said Nomad Capitalist is apolitical, and it is now true more than ever. Listen, Donald Trump won the election and back in November in the US. We have clients who are Democrats, who are lifelong Democrats, who don't want to live in Donald Trump's America, who say, they don't want to live in a place where abortion rights might be potentially restricted according to their views, or the LGBTQ plus community will not be respected in the same way that it was under the Biden administration, according to their view. And that's completely fine. Just as for years we've helped conservatives who maybe feel that their gun rights might be restricted, and we've helped them go where they're treated best, and we've helped them look for more socially conservative places where family, traditional values, religion are more important. So regardless of what your beliefs are, we are here to help. With that being said, and with the hope for a speedy resolution to the conflict and for the freedom and happiness of all of our clients and everyone around the world that may be watching this video, I do hope that you will subscribe, follow us on YouTube and on Instagram as well, and I'll see you in the next video.
This is Oman, and today we're showing you luxury living in its beautiful capital city of Muscat. Now we're going to show you one of the sexiest luxury villas here in Oman.
We're going to show you how to live like a king